My name is Mara Ellis, and for 30 years I played the role my family assigned me. The dependable one, the fixer, the person who never said no. I didn't earn that title. I inherited it the way you inherit a house full of broken furniture, unasked for but always expected to maintain. My younger brother Evan was the opposite. Charming, soft-spoken, sensitive. That's what everyone called him. Sensitive, as if life was a glass display case he needed protection from. Meanwhile, I learned to pour my own cereal at 6, bandage my own scrapes at 9, and manage my own school projects by 10. So when Evan announced his engagement to Rachel, my mother didn't call to ask how I felt. She called to tell me what I'd be doing. Mara, sweetheart, Evan wants a memorable celebration. You're so organized. You'll handle it, right? No mention of the stressful quarter I was closing at work. No acknowledgement that I'd already loaned Evan thousands over the years. Just the expectation that I'd step in. And I did. For 8 months, I arranged everything. The vineyard venue 3 towns over. The vintage-style marquee lights Rachel had pinned on Pinterest. The custom catering menu. The string quartet that charged extra for last-minute arrangements. And every dollar spent? Mine. $86,320. My savings. My overtime pay. My future. I did it because, stupidly, I believed this time would be different. This time someone might say, "Thank you, Mara, we see you." But 3 weeks before the wedding, the tone shifted. A decorator emailed Evan directly instead of me. A photographer forwarded proofs to Rachel only. Then the planner stopped sending me updates altogether. Little signs that I was being quietly pushed out of the circle I had built. But the final crack came on a Tuesday night, when Evan sent a message that still vibrates in my bones. "We think it's better if you sit this one out. It'll keep things easier." No explanation, no gratitude. Just dismissal. I stared at the screen, feeling something harden. Not anger, not sadness. Recognition. Because while they had cut me out, they'd forgotten one thing. Every contract, every booking, every legal agreement was under my name. Mine, not theirs. That night I opened my laptop. The cancellation clauses were sitting right where I left them. And for the first time in my life, I didn't hesitate. I closed the vineyard reservation. Then the caterer. The floral team. The music ensemble. The bar service. The decor staff. The shuttle company. The firework permit Evan insisted on. Each cancellation felt less like destruction and more like release. By dawn, the wedding had been dismantled. Quietly, legally, efficiently. Like cutting threads from a puppet I no longer wished to operate. By noon, the phone calls started. My mother raging, Rachel pretending to be diplomatic, Evan alternating between guilt trips and accusations. But the loudest moment came 2 days later when they showed up at my door. All 3 of them. "Mara," my mother said, "fix this." For the first time I didn't fold. "No," I answered, calmly, steadily. The way I've lived my whole life, but this time for myself. "You uninvited me to a wedding I built," I said. So I took back the part that was mine. Evan sputtered. Rachel blinked. My mother reached for familiar lines. "You're the strong one. You understand." But I didn't let her finish. "Strength is not being used," I said. "Strength is knowing when to stop letting people treat you like a spare tool." They didn't know what to say. People who are used to your silence rarely know what to do with your voice. But they left eventually, stunned and scrambling to rebuild what they had taken for granted. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. In the weeks that followed, I started building something new. Not a wedding, a life, therapy, boundaries, a savings plan that didn't include emergency loans to family members, Friday dinners with a friend group that actually asked how I was doing, and slowly the tightness in my chest loosened. A month later, Evan sent an apology that sounded more like a confession. He'd relied on me because everyone always had. He assumed I wouldn't mind because I never said no. He wasn't wrong. He was just too late. Forgiveness might come someday, or it might not. But this time the choice is mine. And that's what this story is really about. When you stop being who your family needs you to be, you finally become who you needed all along. An entirely new original continuation. 2 months passed. 2 months of quiet mornings, long walks, and a strange sense of peace I didn't fully trust yet. The kind that feels like a calm ocean, hiding something sharp beneath. I thought the fallout from the cancelled wedding was over. I was wrong. It started on a Wednesday. A plain white envelope slipped under my apartment door. No stamps, no return address, no handwriting. Just my name in block letters. Mara. For a moment I assumed it was another letter from Evan. Then I opened it. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. Not of a person. Not of a place I recognized. But of a contract page. A close-up shot of my electronic signature. The one I'd used to cancel the wedding. And beneath the photo, typed in bold, "You made a mistake." My stomach tightened. Someone had taken the photo from inside my apartment. My files were digital. The only printed versions were the ones I kept in a locked drawer of my home office. A drawer that no one should have been able to access. I started checking my rooms, my windows, the tiny space behind the dryer, not because I expected to find someone hiding, but because suddenly nothing felt impossible. I didn't call the police. Not yet. Not until I knew what I was dealing with. The next day I received a second envelope. Same blank style. Same block letters. No photo this time. Just one sentence. You owe us more than you think. Not me. Not Evan. Not Rachel. Us. A group. A decision. A plan. My first instinct was to assume it was my mother or my brother trying to blame me again, but neither of them had the imagination or the nerve to break into my home, and then a memory hit me like a hammer. Rachel's family. The calm, smiling, well-dressed group I'd only met twice. Old money. Old expectations. Old grudges. Evan once told me, they don't like surprises. Canceling a wedding a week before? That was more than a surprise. It was an insult. By Saturday, the third envelope arrived. But this one wasn't slipped under my door. It was taped to my car windshield. That alone told me whoever did this wasn't afraid of being seen. Inside was a USB drive. No note. No message. Just the drive. I stared at it for a long time before plugging it into an old laptop I rarely used. One video file. 30 seconds long. I clicked play. The footage was grainy. Black and white. Captured from a ceiling camera. It showed my apartment door. My living room. My office. The timestamp was from 12 days ago. The night I had gone to therapy and returned later than usual. The night someone had been inside my home. I watched as a figure walked directly to my office desk. They didn't rummage. They didn't panic. They moved with certainty, like someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. They opened the drawer where my printed contracts were kept. They removed a single sheet of paper. Then they left. No hesitation. No rush. No fear. Just purpose. The video cut out. I sat frozen. This wasn't a message. This was a warning. Someone wanted me to know I wasn't imagining anything. Someone wanted me to feel watched. But the final envelope, the fourth, arrived on Monday morning, and it changed everything. It contained a letter, typed, clean, with surgical precision. Mara, you cancelled something that didn't belong solely to you. Now we will take something that belongs solely to you, unless you are willing to cooperate. Nothing else. No signature, just a location printed at the bottom. Pier 19, Friday, midnight. A threat, a meeting, a trap. But the worst part wasn't the message. It wasn't even the intrusion. It was what they had taken. Behind the typed letter, slipped loosely into the envelope, was a second sheet. A copy of my bank withdrawal record. My emergency fund? The account no one in my family even knew existed. And in the corner, handwritten, we know more than you think. Come alone. For the first time in months, my heartbeat wasn't steady. It was furious. Whoever this was, they wanted something. Money. Control. Revenge. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't the same Mara who organized weddings and solved everyone else's emergencies. I wasn't a background character in someone else's crisis anymore. If they wanted a confrontation at Pier 19, they were going to get one. But not the way they expected. Because I had one advantage they didn't. I had nothing left to lose. They had everything. And this time I wasn't walking into their trap. I was setting mine. I didn't sleep the night before Friday. Not because of fear, but because fear had finally sharpened into something cleaner. Strategy. I spent the day preparing. Not weapons. Not friends. Just knowledge. I studied Pier 19 on city blueprints. One road in, one road out. 2 broken security lights. Old loading crates stacked high enough to hide a person. And enough blind corners to disappear in. If they wanted a secret meeting, they picked the perfect place. But they made one mistake. They assumed I would show up alone and helpless. They had no idea I'd been recording every voicemail, photographing every envelope, documenting every threat. They thought they were hunting me. They didn't realize I was hunting back. Friday, 11:52 p.m. The pier was silent except for waves slapping, the wooden posts and the distant groan of a cargo ship. I kept my steps even, my breath steady. If someone was watching, I wanted them to see confidence. Fear feeds predators. Calm confuses them. At exactly midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Walked to the end, slowly. I didn't respond. I just walked. The wooden planks creaked under my boots. Halfway down the pier, I saw a shadow detach from the darkness and step into the sickly yellow glow of a broken lamp. When I saw the face, my stomach dropped. It wasn't Evan. Not my mother. Not Rachel. Not anyone I'd suspected. It was Patricia's brother. A man I'd met once at a family dinner. A man who didn't speak, just watched. His name was Grant. Cold eyes. Clean suit. A smile that looked carved, not earned. Mara, he said, like greeting a client, not a victim. Thank you for coming. I stopped 10 feet away. You broke into my home, I said. You stole my documents. He raised a brow slightly, not denying it. You cost my family nearly $100,000, he replied smoothly. Your impulsiveness embarrassed us. It humiliated Rachel. It disrupted business relationships we cultivated for decades. Business relationships? This wasn't a wedding, was it? I asked quietly. Grant's smile widened. I see you're perceptive. No, Mara, it was never about sentimental ceremonies. The wedding gave us access to investors, people who expected a celebration of scale. Your little tantrum destroyed that. Tantrum. There it was again. The word people use when they expect you to stay silent. I kept my face blank. What do you want? Grant took a slow step forward. Payment, he said. For the damage, the lost deals. The humiliation. Finally the truth. Extortion wrapped in etiquette. I have your bank information, he continued. I know where the rest of your savings are. So you have two options. He held up 2 fingers like a polite salesman. 1, transfer what you owe and we walk away clean. 2, we take something you can't replace. A threat, cold, simple, and illegal. But Grant was expecting fear, panic, compliance. What he got instead was a small, quiet smile. Because this entire time, while he talked, my phone was recording. And not just audio. Video. A tiny lens peeking through the inside of my coat pocket, pointed straight at him. But that wasn't the real twist. The real twist was behind him. A soft click. A shift of metal. And then, peer security. Hands where we can see them. 2 uniformed officers stepped out from behind the stacks of crates. Flashlights aimed, badges visible. Grant spun around, fury ripping through his face for the first time. You brought the police? No, I said calmly. You brought them? He stared, confused. I held up the envelope he'd slipped onto my car days ago. He taped this to my windshield, I said. Which means there are fingerprints on the tape. That's breaking and entering. Harassment, extortion. Stalking. His jaw tensed. And those cameras on the pier? I added. I called security this afternoon. Explained the threats. They agreed to monitor tonight. Grant looked at the officers, then at me. You set me up, he said through his teeth. No, I replied. You set yourself up. I just let you talk. The officers moved forward, cuffing him as he muttered curses under his breath. But right before they pulled him away, he leaned in close to me. Too close. This isn't over, he whispered. You have no idea who you've crossed. I didn't flinch. Neither do they, I said, nodding at the officers. Because I gave them every name in your family's chain of threats. His eyes widened. For the first time he understood. This wasn't a scared woman reacting out of panic. This was someone he shouldn't have underestimated. He was dragged away, furious, humiliated, defeated. After, the investigation moved faster than I expected. His fingerprints from my apartment. The video footage, the envelopes, my recordings, everything connected. It wasn't just Grant. He had help. People from Rachel's family, her father, her cousin, 2 business partners who thought intimidation was negotiation. The wedding had been a front. A soft introduction to their investors before a larger deal they were planning. And my cancellation? It ruined their timeline, their profits, their reputation. So they tried to break me. Instead, they exposed themselves. But the real twist came later. 2 weeks after the arrest, I received a letter. A real one. Handwritten, careful. From Rachel, Mara. I didn't know what they were planning. I swear. But now I know what that family truly is. And I'm leaving. Thank you for destroying the wedding. You didn't ruin my life. You might have saved it. I read the letter 3 times. Not because I needed to, but because in a strange, unexpected way, it closed the story the way it needed to close. Not with revenge, not with bitterness. With clarity. Some weddings end before they begin. Some people reveal themselves only when the stakes get high. And sometimes, the moment you walk away from being the responsible one, you find the strength that was yours all along. Grant's arrest should have been the end, but endings aren't always clean. 3 days after the police took him in, a detective named Rothwell called me into the precinct. His office smelled like old paper, stronger coffee, and the kind of exhaustion only law enforcement collects. He gestured to a chair. Sit, Mara, you're going to want to hear this. Across the desk lay a stack of documents. Bank transfers, offshore accounts, property deeds, all tied to one name I never thought I'd see. Evan Ellis, my brother. My stomach dropped. Detective Rothwell tapped the folder. Your brother wasn't just connected to Rachel's family, he said softly. He was part of the operation. I blinked. No, I whispered. Evan can barely organize his own bills. That's what they wanted you to think, Rothwell replied. Evan handled smaller transactions, introductions, transfers that flew under the radar. He's not innocent. The room spun. I gripped the chair to stay grounded. He gave them access to your finances, the detective continued. Not passwords, patterns. He told them when you traveled, when you worked late. He gave them your vulnerability. A slow, cold ache spread through my chest. All this time, I thought Evan was weak. Turns out he was dangerous in the way only a dependent person can be, easily manipulated, and willing to sacrifice the one person who always protected him. I finally asked, barely above a whisper, "Why would he do that?" Detective Rothwell leaned back. Because they promised him something. A cut of the money. Respect. A place in their circle. And he thought you'd forgive him, like always. Forgive him. Of course. My family had always assumed my forgiveness was endless. But not anymore. Not after everything. Rothwell slid one last paper toward me. A handwritten confession. From Evan, signed. Clear. In it, he admitted he knew about the envelopes, the threats, the break-in, everything. He wrote one final line. I didn't think she'd fight back. I stared at it for a long time. Not crying. Not shaking. Just understanding. They never feared me because I never gave them a reason to. Until now. He'll serve time, Rothwell said. But if you want to make a statement for the record... I stood. No, I said. My statement has already been made. He nodded. Because he knew exactly what I meant. I walked out of that precinct lighter than I'd felt in years. Not because justice had been served, but because I finally saw the truth. Sometimes the villain isn't the person who screams the loudest. Sometimes it's the one who smiles quietly and assumes you'll never stop carrying their weight. And sometimes choosing yourself is the most dangerous thing you can do to people who depended on your silence. Until the next story, take care of yourself, set your boundaries, and never forget your worth.